What's up, everybody? This is Charlie. It's my very first video ever on, like, I guess at this age in my life, or on YouTube, where I would just do something like this. I guess when I was a kid I created stuff, but there's a Def Leppard song that goes, as they're kicking off their intro and they're, rocking and rolling with the guitar riff, the guy just screams out, "I got something to say!" Boom, 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 boom. And they just get into it. Boom, 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 doom, doom, doom. Maybe someone picks that up, but I don't know, man. This won't just be me rambling. I do have something I want to talk about, specifically for today. But this has been something that I've had in my heart for a while, and I'm nervous, admittedly. I'm nervous because I've committed to a couple things. The first of which is that if I'm going to do something as simple as talk into a camera and post it online, I've got to do that authentically. I have to prioritize authenticity, and that means that I'm going to show who I am. I'm going to show the real me. I'm not going to doctor this. I'm not going to rehearse it. I'm not going to script it or edit it, do any of that crazy stuff. I'm just going to record and post. That's scary. Who knows what I'd say? The other thing is, I'm only going to do one take. Now I might bite myself for saying that, later on down the road, if some quality thing occurs, if lightning strikes or something crazy happens where it totally destroys a part of the video. I would hate to put y'all through something annoying, but one take, man. One take. That's all we get. And part of that is forcing myself to trust myself. I'm still a pretty young guy, by the grand scheme of things, but no time on this earth is guaranteed, and so I do have to take into stock the time that I have been given in this world. And if anybody's wondering, I'm 30. I'll be 31 in a couple weeks, and so 3 decades. I don't know. That's some time. That's more time than others. It's more time than a lot of other people get. There's others that are blessed with a lot more time. Maybe double that time, maybe triple that time. But there's also a lot of folks that don't get that much. And there's also a lot of folks that do. They may get time, but they use it differently. Everybody uses their time differently. And there could be an argument for the hierarchical use of quality time, or the hierarchical quality of time of how you could use your time, if that makes sense, if you hear what I'm saying. I think there is a hierarchy to how you can use your time, that's for sure, in terms of quality. And people vary on that spectrum. Some people waste a lot of time. Some people use their time very, very well. Nobody is perfect with their time and perfectly efficient or optimal. That's what makes us human. But the point is, I've spent 3 decades alive, and at the risk of having any sort of hubris, or risking, throwing away humility, I think it's fair to say that I have learned a couple things. Those things will likely continue to be refined, for as long as I'm blessed to live on earth. But there's things that I've picked up and they rattle around in my brain and they weigh on my heart, and they're things that I want to talk about. And you know, I don't know who I'm going to talk about it all the time. That's another thing, you know, is what the heck, well, how am I even worth listening to? Why would I be worth listening to? If I'm so dull that, you know, I'm going to talk in front of a camera as opposed to somebody else. Now, that's obviously just self-deprecating and unfair. You know, kind of funny though. No one wants to listen to me, so I talk into a camera, right? No, that's not true, but I don't know. What I'm saying is that this is new, and you guys are right here with me. So, I've thought about doing this before, and you know, it always seemed like you had to have a goal in mind, like you had to have a disciplined message, or you have to have a disciplined brand, or you had to know how to do the social media thing. And I don't care about that. I don't care about that. I've decided I'm not going to care about that, because what I've also learned is that anytime that I'm myself, that I'm fully just myself in all its imperfections, people who do value me in whatever imperfect state I may be in, but do value the raw me, they'll say so. They'll say so, and they'll tell me, "Hey, I appreciate it," and that's good. Those who don't, well, hey, there's an efficient way of determining who likes you and who doesn't, right? Not that it matters, but you know, I mean, it does matter to be liked. You know, if you're a likable person, so long as you're being also true to yourself, you know, there's a lot of benefits with that. There's not a lot of benefit to being someone that nobody likes. You get socially outcasted. But I think there's it's better to be yourself and not be liked than to not be yourself just for the sake of being liked. Then you're lying to yourself, and the people who do like you don't even really like you because they're liking a thing that isn't even really you. So now even you don't like yourself. So that's double trouble there. Now, if you do like yourself, and you act according to yourself, nobody else likes you. You know, at least you like yourself. Now, that doesn't mean that you should, you know, keep your flag planted and never move and never do some self-introspection. I think there are a lot of folks who they'll never do that, and that's unfortunate. There's a lot of folks who think being disagreeable is a virtue, and wrong. I would just say that's so wrong. Being disagreeable is not being a virtue. Standing for something is having a valued principle that you strongly believe in and are not willing to waver in and are willing to fight for and are willing to sacrifice for. That is virtuous, for sure. And you will be disagreeable through doing that. But being disagreeable for the sake of being disagreeable is not virtuous. I would actually say that it hints of grasping at straws. You're looking for something to cling on to. I need something to believe in. So you're just going to be irritable for the sake of being irritable. Maybe to delude yourself into thinking that you have some sort of virtue that you stand by when you really don't. You know, there's a quote that I heard by former Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis, 40 years in the Marine Corps guy, 4-star general. I don't know if he got it from someone else or if it's from him, but it always stuck with me when he said, uh, loyalty matters most when there's 1,000 reasons not to have any. Loyalty matters most when there's 1,000 reasons not to have any. That's huge. That's huge. You know, and the people who are being disagreeable just to be disagreeable, whatever they're picking a fight at or whatever they're being disagreeable for, they would not be disagreeable towards that if they had 1,000 reasons not to be. You know what I mean? If the chips were down, they'd be like, okay, all right, I concede, you know? And that's how you can tell. That's how you can tell when somebody really believes in something or if they're just bluffing, if they're just putting up a front. The way you do that is you stress test it. You got to stress test it. You have to apply conflict you have to apply pressure onto somebody's position to see, well, essentially what they're made of. Essentially what they're made of. So I don't look to kind of like people who just kick up dust just because they want to make a scene. I'm not sure how I got there and totally where I was going with that, but it's a heck of a segue. It's a heck of a segue to what I did want to talk about. And that's that today's Memorial Day. Today's Memorial Day. Last Monday of May in the United States. I say that in case I don't, who knows? You could have folks, you could have an international audience here, I don't know. So I just got back from about a 4-hour drive up north. I was up in the Springs because we get a long weekend, 3-day weekend. I was up in the Springs, up in like central northern Florida area. Really some really beautiful springs up there. And I was just enjoying it. It's a beautiful day, out on the water, doing the paddleboard. Just enjoying it. And it was in the back of my head that it was Memorial Day. And I'm not going to get super into like why I think about Memorial Day all the time and whatnot, but Memorial Day is for the troops. Culturally, anyway, it's for the troops who gave the ultimate sacrifice and passed away in time of conflict and war. My grandpa, he was a Navy veteran, and my other grandpa was an Army veteran. Simply put, I got to give them both their shout out, right? The Navy veteran told me that Memorial Day is about all folks who have passed. So, maybe it was kind of like a Dia de los Muertos, like you'll see in Mexican culture, where you're honoring people who have passed on, and kind of connecting with death in a way. It's typically not that dark, it's hamburgers, hot dogs, American flags, barbecue, long weekend type thing. But the importance is there for people who have committed given the ultimate sacrifice. And it happens every year. It happens every single year. And it's really heavy. It's really heavy. I didn't know how much I needed to say this, but like, I have served in the military, and so it does connect with me a ton. I'm very lucky that I never lost a best friend or a really good, or like a squad mate or a platoon mate or anything like that. I have lost people. I lost a guy I served with, and he committed suicide and whatnot. But, and that matters also, because I would argue that that's a casualty, especially since he was active duty when he did it. But regardless, the reason why it matters for me is because, and why it's so heavy and why I didn't really want to think about it, is because it's all about, and you'll see this in the veteran community a lot, or you'll see it in, military circles. It'll be like, it's almost guilt trippy almost. Like they would have, make sure that you're thinking about them and they could be here but they're not, and you got to live for them, and never forget who they are and what did all that. And it's heavy, and there's that. And then you'll see on online, you'll see on different social media circles, whether it's like Instagram or whatever, you'll have the vet bros, who are almost all about just trolling anybody who's having a good time. So for a couple years, I didn't want to have anything to do with that, and I just thought, you know what, obviously I'm gonna think about them and respect them, but I'm gonna just try to have a good time and live a life that is obviously worth living and worth their sacrifice. And so that's why I went up to the Springs, and I just I try to have a good time and enjoy some relaxation, some beautiful scenery up there, and try to decompress with the long weekend and try not to get all into it. Now, a lot of folks probably don't even think this deeply into it. They probably think, you know what, sweet, three-day weekend, cool, extra booze or whatever, extra time to get stuff done, however they want to spend the extra time. Maybe they don't even think about it. Maybe a lot of folks don't even have the day off. They don't even celebrate the holiday or think about it. But as I was driving back, and my algorithm's poking at me, hey, do you want to see what national leadership is saying about Memorial Day? And hey, you've got these, military accounts that are in your algorithm, probably because I've served, and so they're here, and this is what they're saying, and it just started poking in, and I was just like, all right, I'll take the time. And I'm glad that I did. Every single year, Memorial Day is going to happen. It's happened for the past, it started happening in, I don't even know, World War I maybe? I don't know when Memorial Day became a holiday. The idea that we honor those who have put others before themselves for this nation is, as old as forever. For the idea that you would put your life down for those who you love to the left and right of you, sacrifice has been a part of the human fabric, part of the human experience, and something that we all look to as the most noble thing you can do is lay your life down and sacrifice yourself for somebody else. It's huge, and so that's not new. It's just important to be grateful, and just even if it's just a couple minutes, just feeling gratitude, feeling that weight. Because what comes downstream of that is ideally more intentional spending of your time, higher quality time. Like I said in the beginning, if you have 3 decades of experience of life, but none of that time was intentional or quality, then are you really living are you living a life quality quality worthy of those who don't have that chance anymore, and sacrifice it so that way you have the capacity to do so. Especially here in America. Especially here in America. You know, I saw a quote once, and I don't know who it's from, but it said, freedom is not the opportunity to do whatever you want. Freedom is the opportunity to do what's right. Well, what's right? That's for you to figure out. You know, when people say, "Oh, it's a free country," blah 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 blah, it's like, yeah, no, it's true, totally true, and it's your right to fail in finding out what is the right thing to do. But hopefully, you know, in your freedom, you're spending a little bit of time being introspective enough to figure out what that is, what that right thing is for you. And I would imagine that anybody who did lay their life down for, whether it's their brothers in arms, sisters in arms that they love, that's right next to them, that they saved, or, you know, at the micro, or scale it all the way back to the macro and talk about humanity, you know, and how the greatest generation of World War II freed the world from despots, you know, and authoritarianism. You know, you could talk about that. You know, whatever scale it is, I would think that if you lost the opportunity to live good, the rest of your good moments in life, that you would want those who benefit from your sacrifice, even if that benefit is just simply to have the opportunity to live that again, that they take the opportunity. They take the opportunity to have a good life. Wasted potential. It's all over the place. It's all over the place. And I know that I've done it too. I've done it. Like I said, nobody's optimal. Nobody's a robot. I've squandered things left and right, actually. And that kills me, for sure. And you can justify why, or whatever, you know, certain pressures at the time, or didn't understand, or didn't have the, you know, whatever the reason is, it's a fact is that it exists, you know. And, ideally, you're not overcome with so much guilt or regret that you continue to perpetuate that failure of not pulling up on the joystick and closing the gap between your reality and your potential. But it takes time for people. It take a long time for a lot of people. So, yeah, I guess in conclusion, really what it all comes down to is that I just want people to, be the best version of themselves, always and forever. It's how we get the best world, it's how we get the best society, it's how we get the best, my experience is going to be better if my neighbors are better than if they're the best versions of themselves, as opposed to like really crappy and depressing. Like, I'm going to have better experiences with those people, with my neighbors, or with my coworkers, or with my friends, or with my people at the grocery store, or whatever. Like, so for selfish reasons, you know, like I want everybody to be their best selves so I don't have to put up with their crappiness. That's for one. You know, so if you ever need a motivation for being better than what you already are, just think of this guy named Charlie on YouTube, right? Or Rumble, or whatever I'm going to post this on. I don't, you know, maybe both, maybe all, maybe, I don't know. I do want everybody to be their best selves. I really do. And you do that by helping folks. You do that by being there for folks. You do that by being your best self. You know, being an example. there's tons of ways that you can kind of influence that, if that's even your goal. So many times you influence it subconsciously or without it, as a second order effect. You didn't even realize that you were influencing them in a way, positive or negative. You want to have some level of self-awareness, but sometimes you don't. Sometimes you don't have that level of self-awareness, and you just influence them in the way that you influence them, because you are a personality. And whether your ripple is really faint and small in the grand pond that we all live in, if you follow this, catch my drift, or if you got a super big ripple, you got a big influence. Doesn't mean it's positive. It could be negative. And awareness helps with aiming that influence, to the best that you can be. But I just hope that everybody, time on this earth is limited. It was particularly limited for the people who gave everything for those who they love, who we celebrate on Memorial Day. And I understand, and everybody should understand, we all know this, we're all human, we're not going to be perfect. Nobody's going to be perfect. You're not going to be optimal. You have to understand that grace exists. You have to give it to yourself. It means letting yourself eat off the hook or anything like that, but it just means understanding you may not be perfect. That's like fundamental, is knowing that you will fall short in some instances, in terms of expectations for yourself, maybe, or whatever. That will happen from time to time. But there's a spectrum. There's a spectrum of quality in how you can spend your time. That will have the downstream effect of determining what your of the quality of your life. The quality of your life will end up being in a spectrum. And we should love ourselves. We should love ourselves to know that you deserve a life that is the best that it possibly can be. The best that it can possibly be. You deserve that. I deserve that. I frequently don't give it to myself, but I deserve it. You deserve it. You also don't deserve it. In the same breath, you also don't deserve it, and you don't deserve anything. So you might as well. You might as well fight for the best you got, because nothing's going to be given to you. Like, we can split it hairs that way too. People get emotional about the word deserve, and I get that, because I don't want anybody in this world running around feeling entitled, because if you do, then you're going to be setting yourself for living one of those lower quality lives, whether that by way of just constantly being disappointed, or running around negatively affecting everybody else, because everyone's got to move out of their way because of the way you are, and that will eventually catch up to you. Whatever it is, I understand the emotionality between the idea of you deserving something. So, whether it doesn't really matter if you deserve something or not, if we deserve something or not. What matters is, are we working to have the best life possible for ourselves, and by virtue affect others. And I think my phone's about to die here, but I just hope that we all do that. Because even if we don't love ourselves enough to do that, there's other people who do. There's other people who want us to be that way. I want you to be that way. Sometimes even more than I want it for me, because for me, that means I got to put in hard work.